This is a podcast from InRetroSpect. To find out more, visit InRetrospectpodcast.com. C'est grand malheur de ne pouvoir être seul. Such a great misfortune not to be able to be alone. In 1840, Edgar Allan Poe wrote a short story entitled The Man of the Crowd, which begins in a cafe in London, with a nameless narrator observing crowds of people as they stream past outside. A particular individual in this crowd is singled out by the narrator, who, throughout the rest of the story, pursues this gentleman through the labyrinthine network of London's streets. After many hours of following, fatigue sets in, and he is forced to halt his pursuit. In realization, he utters, "This old man is the type and genius of deep crime. He refuses to be alone. He is the man of the crowd. It will be in vain to follow, for I shall learn no more of him, nor of his deeds." In 1863, Charles Baudelaire brought the man of the crowd to prominence in French society as the flâneur, which roughly translates as stroller or loiterer. Although having its beginnings in London, it is in Paris that it is best associated, an idea reinforced later by essayist and philosopher Walter Benjamin. His Arcades project highlights the flâneur as the man who feels looked at by everyone and everything, the epitome of the suspicious person, or, on the other hand, the person who is completely untraceable, protected. According to psychogeographer Ian Sinclair, the romantic figure of the flâneur has since become superseded by the stalker, taking on a more predatory persona. Whilst the former walked through Paris to be seen, the stalker sticks to the shadows. It was while playing Assassin's Creed Revelations that the figure of the flâneur popped into my head once again. Those moments where Ezio loses himself in the sea of people and becomes part of a homogeneous mass of movement. A man of the crowd. Yet there was something else that altered my perspective at this moment in the game. A troubling characteristic of the flâneur is that they are almost universally perceived as being male. As Rebecca Solnit writes in Wanderlust, one of the arguments about why women could not be flâneurs was that they were either commodities or consumers incapable of being sufficiently detached from the commerce of city life. Now, I've referenced Solnit before in a previous episode of Digital Wanderlust regarding Tale of Tales' atmospheric PC game, The Path. And again, here we find gender politics in gaming. Surrealists André Breton and Louis Aragon did posit the existence of a female flâneur, or flâneuse, except that such women are seen as prostitutes, a product of a neuroticized Paris. This is because in that era, and indeed for a long period of time, a woman walking at night unaccompanied was a scandalous concept. In my own research, I argue that there is such a thing as a female flâneur, who just so happens to not be a prostitute. Yet one cannot deny that gender does complicate walking behaviour in gaming. It was while visiting an art gallery on walking in Sunderland that I encountered again an exhibition by Sophie Calle from 1980, entitled Suite Venetienne, or Venetian Suite. As Calle writes, "At the end of January 1980, on the streets of Paris, I followed a man whom I lost sight of a few minutes later in the crowd. That very evening, quite by chance, he was introduced to me at an opening. During the course of our conversation, he told me he was planning an imminent trip to Venice. I decided to follow him. And follow him she did. The exhibition features photographs taken by Calle as she followed this man from France to Italy, a journey that ended only when he discovered her. Here we have the female stalker who sees whilst remaining unseen, yet who creates work to be seen. The ensuing photos do not feature Calle, but they indicate her presence. Here we have a work that challenges those labels of genderized walking. This brings me to Assassin's Creed Revelations. When walking through Constantinople, I decided to set myself a challenge in the spirit of Edgar Allan Poe and Sophie Calle. Locating roughly the centre of the map, I waited near a town square outside an archway, and like Poe's character and Calle, I waited for someone interesting to follow. In the distance I saw a shimmer of brown material and decided to follow it. Now, I could have easily slipped into assassin mode and sprinted up on the rooftops, but that's not what Poe did, nor Calle. I decided to just walk, inspired by a recent Through the Reticule of my colleague Sam at InRetroSpect. Now, I'd just completed the game, and therefore such a pace was unusual for me, as the level now moved past me at a much slower rate. Yet such a pace invariably prompted a more detailed focus on my environment. I became aware of birdsong and the textures and colours of the city. Yet I was anxious about losing my person in the crowd. However, I needn't worry, as my own walking pace was faster than theirs. As I got closer to them, I realised that they were a woman, dressed from head to toe in a brown patterned material. I couldn't therefore see their face. Now, the AI in open world games is a Gestalt entity. This means that it is at its most effective when observed en masse as a moving backdrop, like a shoal of fish or a flock of starlings. When you single an AI character out, you begin to see its imperfections. The woman I was following kept touching her hood with her left hand, as if there were a twitch of some kind. If I was playing the game how it should have been played, I would have been less likely to notice this fact, but by singling her out, I invariably invested more attention on her. However, if you think about it, the fast pace of my avatar means that usually the subtlety of such gestures would be lost. By increasing the frequency of their repetition, you increase the chances of the running assassin seeing them. Who is this woman? Where is she going? I find out pretty quickly as she turns the corner into the indoor market, a place in which the fruits of all the sea trading with far-off lands are sold, a hive of activity that threatened to swallow the woman dressed in brown. It was no longer light when she left the market. I'm beginning to observe a pattern to her walk, a specific route programmed within the gaming architecture and hidden within a multitude of other AI routes. Yet before I can explore further, I'm surprised by a thief who I stab in defence. With my cover blown, the woman in brown and her crowd flee. I follow her at a faster pace, trying to locate her. By chance, she is the only one running, and she continues to run the only path the game has given her, the one we just walked. We did about 10 laps of the same route, through the market and round, like cogs in a machine. In the end, I decided to hide in a pile of hay and wait for her to come round again. Perhaps she would begin to walk once more if she could not sense me pursuing her. This is when it began to feel a little bit sinister, waiting, hidden for a woman in the crowd to walk past. I know for a fact that I would not have felt as perturbed if it were a male character I was following. Yet the woman in brown never walked past. I did find her again elsewhere in the city, and managed to actually walk side by side with her. This felt more comfortable, as we were literally on equal footing with each other, walking through a dilapidated part of the city, watching the sun rise. We walked along a cobbled road past a graveyard and the ruins of an old building. Her route was much longer here, longer than her walk in the market. It was all going well, until again a thief attacked me and she ran away. I chased her, almost as if to reason with her, yet I was inhibited by the controls of the game. All I can do is assassinate. We ran together for ages, sometimes meeting dead ends in the architecture, forcing her to turn and run past me. This felt all kinds of wrong. I now felt predatory. Within the context of the game, this is not unusual, but the situation I'd placed myself in, following an AI character, had yielded some unexpected difficulties. It had allowed me to psychogeographically attune myself differently to the digitized Constantinople, viewing it at a slower pace on the ground. But the longer I followed this character, the more I made them human. The woman in brown had a backstory, a life, the reality of which I could never fully understand. I could never follow her or anyone. The game wouldn't let me. Yet for those prolonged moments of pursuit, the more human she became, the more of a predator I became. Yet there is something tragic about this also, because although the further I followed her, the more wrong it felt, the more I knew that the moment I lost sight of her would be the moment that she would be deleted. The only way open world games function is that the landscape slowly renders as you move through it. If, for example, you are on the southern side of the city, then the minute details of the north have no need to exist, because you can't see them. Everything is geared around you, the player. Therefore, one could easily argue that the woman in brown only exists if I can observe her, if I continue to pursue her. By following her, she's able to exist. But to make her exist, I have to undergo an uncomfortable transition from game player to stalker. A transition that fuels a larger conversation about perceptions of gender in gaming. This woman is a flaneuse, part of a crowd, yet able to be isolated from it, completely untraceable. To tweak Poe's ending to his tale, she refuses to be alone. She is the woman of the crowd. It will be in vain to follow, for I shall learn no more of her, nor of her deeds. Well, that brings us to the end of another Digital Wanderlust. Thank you very much once again, listener, for listening. For more details about other episodes in the series, please visit InRetroSpectPodcast.com. You can also find all our other shows in our fantastic label that provide different perspectives on gaming. If you want a roundabout way of getting to us, you can keep up to date with everything that's going on by following us on Twitter at InRetroSpect. Our friendly gremlin will help you out there, no problems at all. If you're not a Twitterer, then you can find us on Facebook as well. We're also on Stitcher as well, Stitcher Radio, another useful resource. Or if you fancy something a little bit visual, our buddy Dan Frost, our colleague here at InRetroSpect, has been hard at work turning all our lovely podcasts into videos for your amusement and enjoyment. So until next month, I will bid you adieu. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.